We got off on the wrong foot. Let me make it up with a drink.
I'll pass.
Rio Paloma's a small town, Beth.
On the next episode of Dutton Ranch.
I was wondering if you knew any ranches in the area. Need a hand.
I was scared. Nobody could have seen this coming.
We'll fix it. I'll be right next to you.
That's not where you want to be.
That's why I won't be anywhere else.
The episode for trailer just dropped and Beulah isn't hiding anymore. She's coming straight for Beth. And honestly, nothing is ever going to be the same again. Okay, so I have been sitting with this trailer for a while now, rewatching it, pausing it, going back and forth on every single frame, and I have to say, this might be the most intense thing Dutton Ranch has given us so far. And that is really saying something because episode 3 already left us in a pretty dark place. The cattle situation, the foot and mouth disease spreading, Beth and Rip watching everything they built slowly start to crumble. It was already a lot to carry. But now, with what this trailer is showing us, episode 4 looks like it is going to hit completely different. The stakes feel bigger, the danger feels closer. And for the first time in this show, I genuinely feel like Beth and Rip might not have the upper hand anymore. Let's start with what we actually see in this trailer because there is a lot to unpack here. The very first thing that stands out is the energy. There is this heaviness to every single shot. Like the entire world of the show is pressing down on these characters from every direction. And right at the center of all that pressure is Beulah. She is not lurking in the background anymore. She is not pulling strings quietly from a distance. She is right there up front, making her presence felt in a way that we honestly have not seen from her until now. And I think that shift alone tells us everything we need to know about where this season is heading. Now, the episode is titled Start with a Bullet, and I want you to really sit with that title for a second. Because it is not subtle at all. Start with a bullet. That is not the kind of title you give an episode where things are going to calm down or resolve nicely. That is a title that tells you someone is going to make a move, a bold, dangerous, possibly irreversible move. And the rest of the episode is going to deal with whatever comes after that. And based on everything we see in this trailer, I think we are about to watch Beulah make that move directly against Beth. Because here is what this trailer makes very clear. Beulah is threatening Beth, not hinting, not warning, not sending someone else to deliver a message. She is doing it herself, which tells me that she has decided Beth is now her primary target. And if you think about everything that has happened between these two women so far this season, it actually makes a lot of sense that we have arrived at this point. From the very beginning, there has been this tension simmering between them. This quiet battle of wills where both of them are sizing each other up, figuring out how far the other one is willing to go, but it feels like Beulah has finally decided. She is done being patient. And honestly, that is terrifying. Because Beulah patient was already dangerous enough. We have spent 3 episodes watching her work quietly, manipulating situations, using people, positioning herself. And she managed to do all of that without ever fully revealing what she is capable of. So the idea of a Beulah who has decided to stop being careful. A Beulah who is now willing to come out in the open and directly threaten someone like Beth. That should scare every single person watching this show. Because if she is willing to be that bold, that visible, it means she is confident. And a confident Beulah is the most dangerous version of her we have seen yet. What really gets me though is what this means for Beth specifically, because Beth is not someone who backs down ever. That is one of the things that makes her such a compelling character to watch. She has always been the kind of person who meets fire with fire. Who does not flinch, who does not run. But this situation with the cattle, with the disease spreading and everything falling apart financially, has already put her in a weakened position in a way we have not really seen before. And Beulah clearly knows that. She is not making this move randomly, she is timing it perfectly, choosing this exact moment when Beth and Rip are already under enormous pressure to step in and apply even more. And that kind of calculated cruelty tells you a lot about who Beulah really is underneath everything. Now let me get into something that has been sitting in the back of my mind ever since episode 3 ended. And this trailer basically confirmed every suspicion I had. Remember how Rip pointed out that the cattle were completely fine before they brought that new bull home from the auction, the one Beulah also wanted? I talked about this in my last video, the theory that Beulah or someone connected to her may have intentionally infected that bull before Beth and Rip ever got their hands on him. And after watching this trailer, I am more convinced of that than ever before. Because think about what we are seeing here. Beulah is not just threatening Beth. Out of nowhere, there is a sequence to all of this. First the bull gets sick, then the disease spreads through the cattle. Then Beth and Rip are financially bleeding out, and now Beulah shows up with a direct threat. That is not a coincidence, that is a plan, that is someone who mapped out every single step of this and is now executing it with complete confidence because she knows exactly How much damage has already been done? And the scariest part is that Beth and Rip are only now starting to realize the full picture of what they are dealing with. If this theory is correct, and I really believe it is, then Beulah did not just attack their cattle, she attacked their entire foundation. Beth and Rip poured everything they had into that ranch, every penny, every ounce of energy, every dream they were trying to build together. And if Beulah deliberately poisoned that, if she sat back and watched them invest everything into something she had already quietly destroyed from the inside, then she is not just dangerous. She is genuinely evil in a way that goes beyond anything this show has given us before. And that changes the entire dynamic of what Beth and Rip are now up against. Because here is the thing about Beth, she can handle a fight. She can handle someone coming at her directly, throwing punches, making threats, playing power games. That is territory she knows. She has survived that her entire life. But this situation is different because the damage has already been done. You cannot undo a disease that has spread through your entire herd. You cannot get back the money you spent. You cannot reverse the weeks of loss and stress and heartbreak that this has caused. So even if Beth figures out that Beulah is behind all of this, even if she can prove it somehow, the wound is already there and Beulah knows that. Which is exactly why she chose this method in the first place. This is what separates Beulah from every other antagonist we have seen in this universe. She does not just want to beat you. She wants to break you first, strip away everything that gives you strength, leave you exhausted and desperate and emotionally raw. And then she moves in for the actual confrontation. Because by that point, she has already won half the battle. Before you even realize a war was declared, and watching this trailer, seeing her step forward and confront Beth directly at this specific moment in the season, it is clear that she believes she has done enough damage to now finish what she started. She thinks Beth is weakened enough to be dealt with. But here is where I think Beulah may have seriously miscalculated. Because the version of Beth that is exhausted and desperate, and watching everything fall apart around her is not a softer version of Beth, it is actually the most dangerous version of her. When Beth has nothing left to lose, when her back is completely against the wall, she does not break, she burns everything down. We have seen this pattern with her before. And I think Beulah, for all her intelligence and planning, may not fully understand what she has just awakened by pushing this woman to her absolute limit. And honestly, I cannot wait to see that collision play out because it is going to be explosive. The trailer also gives us a glimpse of Rip in all of this, and his energy is really telling. Rip is usually the steady one, the grounded one, the person who balances out Beth's fire with his quiet strength. But what we are picking up from these scenes is that even Rip is feeling the weight of the situation in a way that goes beyond just stress or frustration. There is something in how he is moving through these moments that feels like a man who has reached a breaking point of his own. And when both Beth and Rip are pushed to that edge at the same time, the extreme action that the synopsis promises starts to make a whole lot more sense. So let's talk about that phrase again, extreme action, because the synopsis for episode 4 uses it very deliberately, and I do not think we should brush past it. When a show like Dutton Ranch tells you that characters are going to be forced into extreme action, it is not talking about a difficult conversation or a tough business decision. It is talking about something that crosses a line, something that cannot be taken back. And given everything that is building up right now, given the cattle crisis, Beulah's direct threat, the financial pressure, and the emotional state both Beth and Rip are in, I think that extreme action is going to be something that fundamentally changes the direction of this entire season. Now I want to be clear about something before I go further. I do not think the extreme action is about the cattle. I know a lot of people are speculating that Beth and Rip are going to make some brutal decision about the herd, maybe culling the infected animals or doing something drastic to contain the disease. And yes, that is definitely going to be part of the episode. But when I look at this trailer and I see Beulah standing there making direct threats against Beth, I think the extreme action the synopsis is referring to has much more to do with how Beth and Rip respond to Beulah than anything else, because the cattle situation, as devastating as it is still a problem they can potentially survive. Beulah coming for them directly is a whole different kind of threat. And here is what I keep coming back to, the title, Start with a Bullet. We already talked about how heavy that title is, but I want to go even deeper into it now because I think it is actually a massive clue about what the extreme action turns out to be. Start with a bullet does not sound like a defensive move, it sounds like an offensive one. It sounds like someone deciding that the time for playing it safe is completely over and the only way forward is to strike first, hard, and without hesitation. And if that is Beth and Rip making that decision, if they are the ones who choose to start with a bullet, then episode 4 is about to become one of the most intense hours this show has ever produced. Think about the position they are in right now. They have a ranch that is under biological attack, whether they can fully prove it or not. They have a woman standing in front of them making open threats. They have no financial cushion left to absorb any more damage. And they have a history, a very long and complicated history, of doing whatever it takes to protect what is theirs. Beth and Rip did not survive everything they went through in Yellowstone. By being passive, they survived by being willing to go further than the people coming after them. And I think episode 4 is going to remind us and remind Beulah exactly who these two people are when they decide to stop holding back. But here is the layer that makes this even more interesting to me. Whatever move Beth and Rip make, it is going to have consequences that stretch far beyond just this episode. Because Beulah is not operating alone, she has people, resources, influence, and clearly a very long memory when it comes to people who cross her. So if Beth and Rip come at her hard, if they start with that bullet the title is promising us, they better be ready for everything that comes back at them afterward. And I think that is exactly the tension the show is building toward, not just one explosive confrontation, but the beginning of a full-scale war between these two sides that is going to define the rest of this season. And that actually brings me to something else the trailer hints at that I think a lot of people might have missed. Because while everyone is focused on Beth and Beulah, and rightfully so, there is something happening in the background of these scenes that I think is equally important. Beulah is not just threatening Beth in this trailer, she is also very clearly consolidating her power in the surrounding area. The synopsis even confirms this, saying she strengthens her control over the situation. And when you combine that with what we already know about her, the way she has been quietly building influence, buying loyalty, and eliminating anyone who gets in her way, it starts to paint a picture of someone who is not just trying to take down Beth and Rip. She is trying to make herself completely untouchable before they even have a chance to fight back. That is a smart strategy, honestly. If Beulah can lock down enough support and control in the area before Beth and Rip can mount any kind of real resistance, then even if they strike back, they will find themselves completely isolated. No allies, no leverage, no one willing to stand with them because everyone around them is already under Beulah's thumb. And that isolation, that feeling of being completely surrounded with nowhere to turn, might actually be the most dangerous